Become a wealth creator today. Text VISIT to 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's VISIT to 800-454-1184.
You know, you hear Eric's voice on the radio every single weekend, and maybe you've even seen his face on some advertising in the area. Maybe you have people who work with Eric and his team at Heckman Financial. But today, we're going to get to know him even more. And if you would like a more personal face-to-face chat, then give Eric and his team a call. Let me get you that phone number, 800-454-1184. What you can do is call this number for a complimentary visit, 800-454-1184. The other thing you could do is text the word toolbox to this number, and you'll get the toolbox. It has the book that Eric has written, Blueprint to Worthless Wealth, plus other educational materials. Really cool things for retirement. Eric and his team have worked really hard on this. They help retirees have that remarkable retirement. And gosh, they've been doing this for over 30 years. So check them out yourself, wealthcreatorradio.com. And Eric, hello to you.
Hey, Luann. Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a different take here. We're just going to go over how I got into this and why I do what I do. So,
okay, very good. So let's just start with your background, how you got started, even at a young age. How did you get involved in the financial services?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was always kind of interested in money. I had a checking account when I was 14, mainly so I could buy those good old Columbia records. And always was working usually 2 jobs, just because I like to have money and like to have stuff and do things. And so, when I was going to Santa Clara University, I was going with a finance degree, and I did actually an internship doing cold calling for a stockbroker, kind of old school stuff for a while, but did also a internship for getting my securities license and my insurance license. And then I was working in banking at the time, and started working mainly with an insurance company that also did investments before I kind of broke out on my own. And, so that's kind of how I kind of the path I chose to get in here, or it chose me, I guess. Right.
Right.
And so, it was more, I don't know if I was quite the Alex P. Keaton kind of character from Family Ties, but kind of somewhat
kind of like it. Yeah.
And I did like to, have a lot of that stuff figured out. And I was also always good at kind of solving puzzles or figuring out different ways to do certain things. So, with financial planning, financial advising, really it is, if you think about it, there's lots of different paths, there are lots of different ways to kind of achieve similar results, but which one's the most optimum? And that's kind of the stuff I like to always figure out. And that's kind of what got me into here.
Yeah. Now you've kind of fallen into the areas of helping retirees. So that's a huge puzzle to figure out for each individual, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's probably the bigger one, really, for a lot of people. That's the most complicated. Having your money, just put it away and save it, let it grow. That's there's things you can be doing along the way, but it's not as complicated, correct? So the really complication is, how do you now have all these different types of accounts? Which one do you take first? How do you take it? How much can you take? How's it going to last? And what's the tax ramifications? All those kinds of issues. That's really what I like to do, because there's a lot less people in that space, a lot less people actually understand it, and it's one where I can really excel and show people, hey, these are some different options you could do it, but here's probably the best way for you.
I love it. Now, talk a little bit about Heckman Financial. How many people are in your office?
Yeah, we've got seven on the team here. We've got a full-time tax person who, does tax returns for our clients, and in off tax seasons, helping do an analysis with Roth conversions, other types of stuff, because there's everything about retirement is tax related,
right? And
so that's one big thing. And then of course we've got just the team doing the planning, team doing the applications and getting all the accounts up and running. And then we do just a lot of client service stuff. We do fun client events. We usually do a Galentine's thing around Valentine's Day for the ladies. We do summertime kind of company picnic thing with all of our clients. So there's a couple of standard events that we always do every year, but then we do some educational ones along the way. And of course, anytime there's a tax law change or anything like that. So we do a lot of events for existing clients, and really to try to keep them informed, try to make sure they're knowing what's going on, and also have a little bit of fun while you're at it, right? So,
right. Yeah.
You got to keep it interesting.
I love that it's a family atmosphere, because I've seen pictures and events that you guys have held where everybody comes, and then they can even bring friends, and you have, just really good time together. And then also, like you said, you have these educational events, and you hold a lot of those throughout the year. So talk about how people could find out about those and sign up for those.
Yeah, well, so there's always different events going on. We'll either be doing, some talks, sometimes at dinner places, sometimes more educational settings, and so we've always got those going on. Usually, we have some on-demand webinars. Those are always up and running, and on certain topics, and that's a good way just to get a little bit more data, a little bit more information, and really kind of understand a little bit more. Yeah, you may not get it all, right? You may not want to learn it all, but at least you know what you should start to know, or what to ask about, right? And so, one of the things we've done is we've got a list of those at wealthcreatorradio.com. And so, you'll go there. You can click on the link there to see all the latest and greatest events that we have. And like I said, there's always some webinars up and running. So you can click on those anytime you want. And again, that's wealthcreatorradio.com. And, if you want it even easier, all you have to do is text RSVP to 800-454-1184. That'll send you the list of the events that we have coming up, or the link, to find those. So again, super easy way to do it is just text the word RSVP to 800-454-1184.
We thank you so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Luann Fulmer. Now, Eric, tell us how you teach your own boys. You have 3 boys, almost all grown, but how are you teaching them about finances, and when did you start?
Yeah, well, probably didn't start as good as we should have early on, but we tried some. We did do some little things here and there and stuff, but no, I mean, one of the things that we did is, really they always wanted to get, have some jobs now. They didn't work quite as much as me, but they did do like seasonal jobs. Like they all worked at the ice rink downtown when, the outdoor ice rink. So, there were certain things they like to work at scout camp and other stuff like that. So, so that was one way to at least have some of their own money and, that they can do. But, I mean, I think one of the bigger things that we did was really when they went to college. It's like, okay, well, if you're in the dorms or in an apartment, we'll give you some money, for basic food type stuff or meal plan, but we didn't give them any spending money. So if you want spending money, get a job, right? And do something, and then you can, get your spending money that way. And they did, they got some part-time jobs, just enough to pay for movies, pay for, the fun stuff that you want to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they're, especially with my oldest, who's out on his own now, type of thing, it's all about funding Roth. Make sure you start putting some money in Roth. Make sure you also have some money in savings. Build up some savings. Don't just put it all away for when you're 59 and a half, which is way too long for somebody who's in their 20s.
Right, exactly.
And so you want to have that safety money. You want to have some of that backup money so you don't go on credit cards, but you also need to put everything in the Roth, so that way it's not going to be in the government's hands down the road. And, that's one of the big things that we look at when we meet with people, is we go through that whole process and we teach them all these different things. So, one of the things is just getting that information, getting that data. Again, that's one of the most critical things that people can do. And so we set up this digital toolbox for people, and it's got all sorts of great things. Like, are you paying too much in taxes in retirement? Will your money last as long as you do? Copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth. All that you can find by just texting the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, all you have to do is text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or you can download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Do you know whether your retirement plan has any weak points? Discover ways on giving your financial future the proper tune-up. Simply go online to wealthcreatortoolbox.com to gain a better understanding in taxes, Social Security, and other ways to manage your portfolio.
And that's how it's done.
That's wealthcreatortoolbox.com.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. He is president of Heckman Financial. So happy to have you along with us today. You know, there's a song that Rod Stewart wrote, and one line in it, well, the name of the song is Ooh La La. I don't remember it. Do you remember that, Eric? Ooh La La? Rod Stewart?
Yeah.
You do?
So,
okay.
yeah.
Well, the line in it says, I wish I knew what I know now when I was younger. And how many times have we all wished that? You know, I'm like, oh man, wish I knew then what I know now. And then there's a freelance copywriter, and she recently wrote things that she would tell her 20-year-old self. So I thought it would be kind of fun to ask you, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self, Eric?
Yeah, well, we all wish we had done stuff differently, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I think when you're younger, the kind of big thing is, of course, one is just avoiding debt, avoiding the temptation of everybody, just, click, tap, 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 right? You don't have to insert your card anymore. And, so that's one hazardous thing is trying to keep up with the Joneses or buying all the latest and greatest. And most of that stuff you end up throwing away anyways after a while, right? So, so that'd be one thing, just watch how much you're spending. But, probably more importantly, just really funding some money in Roth, be pre-tax, but also have enough money in savings. And then if you want to move up to the next level, whatever that is, if it's a bigger apartment or trying to buy a place or something, save up ahead of time, have that 3 to 6 months of savings for that debt load or for that, that spending level that you have now. So if you're spending, say it's $3,000 a month now, but you want to be spending $5,000 a month. Well, okay, let's make sure you have that money saved up. Let's see if you have 30,000 sitting in the bank, then you're now have the savings for somebody who's spending $5,000 a month, right? So then go up to the next level. But most people, what they do is they get the debt, and then they don't have the money to do the savings, and then they wonder why they never have the money. And then they start figuring out when they're 40 or 50, and it's a lot late then, right? So then that's when we start talking about, I wish I'd done that when I was 20, right? So I think that's one of the critical things is really having that savings first, and planning ahead a little bit better versus just going out and doing all the stuff you want to do. Yeah,
that's the bad thing. You start your career and you have the, finally have money, and then you start spending, and then you get in debt. That was my husband and I. What you just said, that was my husband and I. And then we're like, okay, here we go. We got to get serious, coming up here, getting closer to retirement. So if you look back at your life, so in your 20s, you're laying the groundwork really, truly for your, financial future. Like I just said, my husband and I. In our show, we talk about the stages of retirement, but financial planners say there are 5 financial stages of life. So we're going to kind of go over those right now. Your clients, are around probably my age or older. So they probably have, maybe kids or grandkids in this first stage of life. So talk about that. And we want to talk about paying forward information to the next generation to help them do better.
Yeah, well, like I said, big thing would be savings and debt. So buy the stuff that you can afford, not the stuff that you want, right?
Yeah.
So, which is tough to do. And so, so start building up that savings, have that, that ideally that 6 months of expenses saved up. Then you can go out and buy some of that other stuff. But also along the way, you got to be at least funding that match, getting up to, if you're working at a job, at least get that match. And nowadays, of course, a lot of people are just doing the gig economy type stuff, right? They might have, smaller, littler jobs type of things that add up to a full-time job. And you may not have those matches. Well, you still need to be putting money away. So that's a big one is, try to at least be putting at least 5% away long-term when you're in your 20s, because that money will grow to be huge, down the road. But I think that's kind of the debt and the savings would be the first ones. And, then once you get past that, then you can start doing a little bit more, a little bit more sophisticated planning or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. So after that early career, then, you start having kids and, building your career, right? Getting into the positions that you want. So let's talk about those financial steps that are happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing, especially in the Bay Area, a lot of people, they want to get that ideal house. Well, that's sometimes a really bad way to go. I used to play Monopoly a lot as a kid and still undefeated. And I almost don't want to play anymore because I don't want to lose. Every time we played Monopoly, I would always buy the cheapest houses. I would buy all the cheapest properties because you could very easily get houses put on them and hotels and all that. And you almost always end up winning. And whoever wants to save up for the expensive ones can never do much with them.
Interesting.
And so same thing with, when you're first starting out, just get into some sort of real estate. And amazingly, after 5 or 10 years, you're going to have some equity in there. Then you'll be able to move up to that next house. Mm-hmm. But if you wait to save up a little bit more, guess what happens to that price of the house? It goes up a lot more, Mm-hmm. And so sometimes just getting into something is worth it. So that'd be one thing. Like I said, having that savings, building up that saving, that retirement, this is where you would need to start probably plowing a little bit more money away too, is once you do have that house, then okay, how do we ramp up these savings? How do we, start building that money up more? Because as you are starting to age more, you want that money to be growing over time. And, the more time you have, the easier it is for that money to grow. So, I think it's one of the big critical things.
Okay. Now, do you work with people in these first two stages very often in this part of financial life that we're talking about?
No, not too much. Okay. We do for a lot of our adult children of our clients. So, so we've met with a lot of them, and they'll come in and, ask some questions. And, sometimes, we do work with some younger people. I mean, I've also had some younger people that want to retire at 50 or 55. And so to me, they're like somebody who's trying to retire at 65, right? So, so we will work with those. But I think people in these earlier stages, it's more about just getting the basics, right? Making sure you've got all insurance stuff covered, life insurance, all that type of stuff, that you've got that money being put away, trying to save that 15% between long-term, short-term, and medium-term money. Those are the big keys. And so, that's something where there's a lot of online stuff. You could also, there's a lot of other financial advisors that you look at, and that's something we refer people to, even if they need that help too.
Yeah. So there are a lot of really good people that can help, savers with their money, and you can grow your money and all that with those type of advisors. But you mostly work with people who are closer to retirement.
Yeah, exactly. So for us, we're working with people that are doing that shift, because that shift can be hazardous, right? So there's a lot of mess ups that you can do in your 20s and 30s and overcome them in your 40s and 50s.
Oh yeah.
It's not as easy, but it's doable. If you mess up something in your 60s, it's really hard to fix it in your 80s. So you get one retirement. And so that's why you really want to have good, solid advice when we're talking about that payout phase, when you're starting to withdraw the money, because it's also really freaky for people. It's so funny. I mean, I had this couple in here, Al and Tina, and they were doing that shift. He worked for PG&E, and he's doing that shift into that retirement. And I was telling him that a lot of people just have emotional issues, literally taking that money back out. And I think he heard me the first time, but he didn't listen to me. And then, the next time we met, he's like, "Wow, you are so right." You told me this thing about, people freak out, and, he repeated what I said, which was pretty funny. And, and it is something that I think a lot of people just don't quite get. And then there's just so many decisions too. It's a lot more complicated than people think.
Right. Now, would you say, is it ever too early to start thinking about retirement?
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah. I mean, that's, going back to, what you, would have done when you're 20. I mean, just, if you look at the compounding, well, the rule 72 basically says if money doubles, if you earn 7%, it doubles basically every 10 years. And so if you think about that in your 20s, if you just put in 1,000, that 1,000 could be then 2, then 4, then 8, and 16,000. Well, what if you did that multiple times, right? I mean, all of a sudden you've got all this money there when you're older versus if you wait to start when you're 40. Well, you miss 2 of those doublings, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty brutal to try to wait that long. I mean, you're not going to have to get super accurate, right? This is just, are you somewhat in the general direction, right? It's like, am I if you're trying to drive across the country, am I at least heading east? You may not be on the right road, but at least you're in the right direction generally, correct? So that's really what you're talking about when you're younger. And so one of the things we have set up is a lot of great tools in our digital toolbox. And, these are things like, will your money last as long as you do? Are you paying too much in taxes in retirement? Social Security decision. Even my book, Worry Less Wealth, which is, really from people 50s and on. And that's all sitting there free of charge for you. Quick, easy reads and downloads. All you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Be sure to like and subscribe to Wealth Creator Radio so you can stay up to date on ways to build your wealth and create a retirement you and your family will enjoy for years to come. Like and subscribe today and create your wealth for tomorrow with Wealth Creator Radio.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. It's no surprise that what's right for your money now probably won't be the case in about 10, 20 years from now. There are 5 main stages to your financial life. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. And this stage that we're getting to, the 3rd stage, is really, really important. These are your pre-retirement years. And Eric, this is who you work with. Again, it's an exciting time for these people. Their house is probably paid off. Hopefully their kids are off the payroll. And you are in your peak earning years. But it's also a time of life when you cannot afford to ruin it with the wrong financial moves, right?
No, exactly. And around here, probably in Silicon Valley, your house probably isn't really paid off. Every once in a while, you run into those people who were able to do that, but at least hopefully you're not refinancing and taking more cash out or anything like that. And then I do agree, yes. So hopefully the kids are off the payroll. It's always one of my first questions: is the bank of mom and dad closed, or is it still operating? And often it's still operating. So yeah, you do have to watch that. Because I had one couple that I think she was spending about $3,000 or $4,000 a month on their adult children.
No,
and they're trying to retire, and so that was a big bone of contention between the two. That was we got to cut them off a little bit, this would be when you're starting to have to like position the money in the right spots, right? Because of when you're having the money grow, you just, put it in there. Hopefully it works. Those ups and downs in the market don't really matter, right? Because as long as they just keep putting money in, it'll come back and all that type of stuff. Well, that works until you have to start withdrawing it, right? So this is where you have to start paying attention to where those placements are. So this is when you start having to go, oh, well, do I have a lot of foundational money, stuff that's not in the market? Because your 401k forces you to have 100% of your money in the market, which is stocks and bonds. What we want to have is have some money that's guaranteed, ideally that's earning some good interest, maybe 5 to 9% or something like that. But something that's earning you some good money that can't go away, because on those bad years, you can go take that money from there. Good years, you take from the market. Mm-hmm. Also, in between there, we usually want to have some steady income stuff. That steady income money is really stuff that investments that are less volatile, that pay you some really good dividends. So again, they give you cash flow. Now, when you're still not retired, you don't necessarily need that cash flow, but it can build up in your portfolio and take advantage of certain times. But yeah, that's what you need to start doing, is shifting the money, not 100%. It's not like you're doing you passed it, you got to do a U-turn, right? Recalculating. No, we're not doing that. We're just talking about, let's start shifting and start, getting over there, getting in that general direction and making those changes. Because also it's one of those things where you don't want to do it all at once, right? Because who knows what the economics of that time frame will be when you make that decision.
Right. And that's like my husband and I right now. I mean, I'm turning 65 this year. He's right behind me. We're only 8 months apart, but I'm a little bit older. And so that's what we are doing. We're trying to shift, money into our Roth so that we can reduce those taxes in the future. So that's where we are right now. And just thinking about, how we're going to be able to maintain the current lifestyle that we have. What about thinking about plans for healthcare? Is this also the same time you should be doing this time that you should be doing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is really a big time to be planning for, the 5 areas that we always talk about when we talk about the blueprint to worry less wealth. And so first is having an income plan, right? Making sure that you've got that money that is going to be able to pay out. Where's it going to come from, right? Will it last long enough? Are you, mostly on track, or do you have to move those dates out farther, right? So that'd be one of the things. And obviously investments, how you're investing it, which we kind of just talked about, is making some of those changes. You brought up Roth, how can we lower taxes? What tax moves should we be making? Healthcare is a big one, because if you're pre-65, it's going to be probably $1,000 per person for medical. And once you turn 65, it's probably 300 or 400. So big difference between those two.
Yeah.
And, when are you going to retire, pre or post 65? That's a big one. And then, then obviously legacy, who's getting your stuff? Are your assets titled in the right way? So, that's one of the things that you really want to be looking at, is all 5 of those areas, and start having a plan, for those. Cause it is really critical that you do have that plan. And, that's one of the things that we do here at Heckman Financial is, we actually go through that whole process. First, we have just a quick 30-minute phone call where we just talk to people about what their worries are, what their concerns. And then if it makes sense, we'll actually go through that whole blueprint. We'll go through all those 5 areas, tell you where you're headed, free of charge right now. We've been waiving that planning fee. And so that's one of the things that we can do, is actually help you go see where you're going to be. And then we'll tell you what's working, what's not, and what things you might want to change. Again, this is just critical information to be getting, especially if you're in that pre-retirement zone and that phase of life. So all you have to do is, if you want to set up a quick time to talk with me, Eric Heckman, text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And you are listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. He and his team at Heckman Financial work with this stage that we're talking about, pre-retirees and then in retirement. And, Eric will say their system is working very well. They've been helping retirees just like you, and Eric is reaching out to you. That's why we do this show every weekend. So getting that financial checkup would be a good time in pre-retirement years to make sure you're on track. And then you already kind of talked a little bit about making that transition from saving for retirement to now you're pulling out money, but you also have to generate income in retirement. So tell us a little bit about that, Eric.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you kind of visualize it, which is always fun on the radio, right?
Yeah.
So, but think about different buckets, right? So you've got your tax deferred bucket, which unfortunately for a lot of people is their biggest bucket. This is your 401ks, IRAs, and all that stuff. This is stuff that you haven't paid tax on. So you got that bucket has a lot of little gotchas, right? Depending on how much you take from there. You got your taxable bucket, which might be your savings and stock accounts, brokerage accounts. That's got a lot less tax ramifications. And then you got the tax-free bucket, which unfortunately is usually the smaller one. That's the Roth IRAs and life insurance and other things that are tax-free. What we want to do is figure out how much should we be taking from each one of those. And then you can actually decide what your tax bracket will be, which seems weird. But when you're working, you just get your W-2 and do your tax return, and it is what it is.
That's that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but in retirement, depending on which bucket and how much you took from which one, that's going to dictate a lot of stuff about your taxes. If you take too much money out of your tax deferred bucket, your IRAs and 401ks, that might cause your Social Security bucket to get taxed heavier. That's things that people don't tell you about, right? That's the stuff that your tax advisor won't mention because they don't see that you had options of taking it differently, and they're always reporting backwards. So this is where you have to be planning ahead for that next year. where's that money going to come from? So yeah, it's got to be, and then of course, like you said, these investments need to start generating income. They need to be giving dividends, giving other things, because say if you need to take 4% of your money out and you only have 2% of your portfolio paying dividends, that means you're selling 2% of your shares every month. Well, if the market's up that month, that's not bad. But if it's down for a few months, that means you're selling more shares, selling more shares, selling more shares. And then when the market comes back, those shares are gone. So yeah, that's what makes it a lot more critical.
Eric, this has been great. We've covered a lot of information here about the stages of your financial life. How can people get more information?
Yeah, well, like I said, you need to get once you get to that pre-retirement and then that payout phase. Yeah, you need to have a plan. You need to have a lot of data. You need to know what you're doing. Yeah, you don't want to just wing it and hope it works. So yeah, I think education's the best way to do it. So we put up a lot of great resources there at that digital toolbox. My book, Worry Less Wealth. Are you paying too much taxes in retirement? The Social Security decision. Will your money last as long as you do? And even a link to set up a time to talk with me, Eric Heckman. So if that's something you want to do, all you have to do is text the word toolbox to get all this great data. Again, text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox 800-454-1184 or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Imagine your first day of retirement. What do you see? Let's turn that vision into reality. The first step, get Eric Heckman's Wealth Creator Toolbox. In it, you'll get information on some of the biggest challenges you'll face in retirement. Request your Wealth Creator Toolbox now by texting the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. That's toolbox to 800-454-1184.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial right here in the Silicon Valley area. There are some words that can stand the test of time, and we're going to go through some timeless advice right now for you to keep in mind for retirement. So here's how it's going to go, Eric. I'm going to give you a quote, and then I want you to talk about what that has to do with retirement planning, okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, here we go. First one is Benjamin Franklin. And oh my gosh, he has so many quotes because he did so much, okay? Here's a good quote from him. Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. So that sounds like something we need to think about. Those little expenses that could cause unexpected issues in retirement, right?
Well, not just in retirement. I mean, just all the time, right?
Life.
And, right now, of course, when the subscription model kind of first came out for software and other things, it was amazing how much more profitable a lot of these companies got because, now you don't pay for it once, you pay for a tiny bit every single month, right? And same with streaming services and same with, so many different things. So another term I like is dripping nickels. That's the other good one. And so, one of the things to look at is, just sit down and look at those, your credit card bills and your bank accounts. Are there things you're paying for that you're barely using or not using at all? Even worse, right? So those are things where if you can kind of go through there and start cutting out some of those expenses, it's amazing. Sometimes people can save, $100, $500, even $1,000 on stuff that they're not really using or needing. And so, that's one of those things that, again, that's 100% return on your money, right? If you stop spending it. So it's a very good way to make some money by just stop spending it and on things that you don't need.
Right. All right. Very good. We're going over some timeless advice. I'm giving Eric some quotes and he's telling us what it has to do with retirement. This next one is from somebody we all know about, Abraham Lincoln. And he said a lot of things too, but here's one. He said, you cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today.
That's definitely a good one. He did have a great way with words. And so, I mean, it is very true that I would probably say, if they're all being honest, I'd say it'd probably be 100, but I'd say at least 70% of my clients always regret not starting earlier, not doing something, sooner, right? Why didn't I put more money away when I was in my 20s or 30s and, things like that, right? And so why did we not do that? Well, because we were exactly what he was saying.
Procrastinators.
We were trying to escape the responsibility tomorrow, right? By evading it today. So yeah, it is one of those things where if you can just start putting a little bit away, it's amazing the amount of time that compounding does and how that's on your side if you start early. If it's late, you can still do it. It just means you need to put more away and maybe you cut back more now to make sure it's all good later on. But you definitely need to have a focus on tomorrow always, even today.
So true. Believe me, I'm 64. My husband and I both wish we would have, back in our 30s and 40s, saved more, because now we're regretting, we regret it. And man, that would have been helpful. So we're working really hard now to save though, Eric, and we've downsized and saving as much as we can. And we were out of debt and all that. So believe me, if you do it earlier, you won't have to, kind of scramble at the end like Bobby and I are doing. But all right, here's another quote from, actually, I would say this is a pretty heavy hitter in the financial world, Warren Buffett. And he says, I never attempt to make money on the stock market. I buy on the assumption that they could close the market the next day and not reopen it for 10 years. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that one's a little funky, huh? I mean, I don't think they would close it for 10 years.
I don't think so.
But yeah, I mean, in essence, what he's saying is he's trying to put money in there for long term, for owning whatever company. Right now, oh my gosh, with all the meme stocks and all the, FOMO and get rich quick kind of attitudes that you see out there. So many people, unfortunately, are just trying to jump on whatever the hottest new stock is and make a ton of money. And they may do that once or twice, but the problem is the other 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 times they didn't do it, offset what they made on those 1 or 2 times, right? and so that, I mean, that's one of the things that you have to watch out for. I mean, you need to have that long-term focus. You need to make sure that, that this money's going to last you for the rest of your life. And there's, also on the flip side of that, you also can't just jump back in and out. I mean, that's one of the worst things that I see where, people that, in 2022, because the market was down, they said, I'm going to get out. And then, of course, the end of 23, it was back to where it was at the end of 21. So, those kind of things where you have these dips and back up, if you overreact to those too, then, that's going to be a problem. So, one of the things I think is anytime you're doing anything, if you have a plan to go back on, you're assembling that IKEA furniture or whatever it is, right? And all of a sudden you see some extra bolts, you can go back in the directions and make sure you didn't skip a step, right? You can make sure that you did it all right. So when you have a plan, it's easy to know, okay, should I freak out, or are these just actually extra bolts, right? Or did I forget something and it's going to fall over the second I put it up? So you need to know that information. It's really critical for you. So, that's what we do with our clients. It's like, okay, am I going to be okay? Am I going to make sure this money's going to last me the rest of my life? What about inflation? What about, risk? What happens when there's a down market? Because basically every 10 years, there's going to be probably 1 to 3 down markets, and you're going to hit those in retirement. So where do you get the money that year for to live on and such? Well, if you've got a good plan where you've got foundational and steady income and market funds, you've got a plan for that. If you've got that blueprint to worry less wealth, where you talks about your income plan, your investment plan, your tax plan, healthcare and legacy plan, then once you have those 5 areas taken care of, you also know you got a plan to fall back on. So, I think that's one of the things that you have to have always your eye on to make sure that you're on track and on target. And so, one of the things that you can do is if you wanted to get a little bit more information, set up a time to talk, 15 to 30 minutes with me, Eric Heckman, and no cost, no obligation, or you just want to get a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth. If you want to get some of our quick reads, we've got these 10 to 15 page papers on Social Security decision. Will my money last as long as I do? Items like that. All you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Yeah, and on wealthcreatorradio.com, they have like Eric already said, there's some free reports there. But you want some more advice? Eric's giving you advice today. There's a lot of articles on things that you might have questions about. What if you do need long-term care or those Social Security decisions or empower women investors? Just all kinds of things. Head to wealthcreatorradio.com for even more. Eric and his team are here to guide you about retirement. In fact, Eric's been doing this for 30 plus years. So that is his passion, to help retirees have a remarkable retirement. And you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. Thank you so much. So Eric, here's our final quote, maybe from someone who's far less famous. This is a financial author, and his name is Jonathan Clements. He says, retirement is like a long vacation in Vegas. The goal is to enjoy it to the fullest, but not so fully that you run out of money. And tell us how true that is.
Yeah, well, no, definitely. I mean, it should be a lot like a vacation, but you don't want to be, I think it's almost more expensive going to Disney nowadays than it is Vegas. But, some of these places, when you're on these trips or these resort areas, right, everything's so pricey. You don't want to be spending that kind of stuff every day, for, the rest of your life, right? So you gotta have a little bit both ways, right? Have those fun trips, have those things, but have that in a fun fund. Have a fund set aside where you've got that money to do those things, and make sure you're doing the things that you want to do, getting out there, having some fun, seeing friends, seeing family, going to all those bucket list places, but do it within a plan. So once year by year, my clients come back to us and they say, "Oh, how am I doing? Are we on track?" And I mean, one of the nicest ones I just recently had was I had a client that we went over, how she's been doing, and she's like, "Is this about right?" I mean, I looked back from some of our reports from, I think it was about 8 years or 9 years earlier, and she's averaged only about 10,000 drop in all those years of her assets.
Oh, wow.
Even though she's been living off of them and taking income and so forth out of that. So, I said, you're good. She's like, well, I'm always worried about that Costco shopping cart. Do I need to take it home with me or not? And like, nope, you're fine. So, again, that's why we put all these tools up and all these great resources up at our digital toolbox. There's a lot of great stuff in there. You can set a time to talk, get a copy of my book or some of those reports. All you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Be sure to like and subscribe to Wealth Creator Radio so you can stay up to date on ways to build your wealth and create a retirement you and your family will enjoy for years to come. Like and subscribe today and create your wealth for tomorrow with Wealth Creator Radio.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. He is president of Heckman Financial. He's author of the book, Worry Less Wealth. He's giving that away today in his toolbox. So make sure you take advantage of that. Just text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184. All right, Eric, we have come to this time in our show where we do success stories, okay? We also do some fails, financial fails, but today we're going to have you tell us about something nice that has happened, a great example that a retiree did something that turned out right. What do you have for us?
Well, this is something that happens now, I would probably guess almost quarterly, if not monthly. So I've somewhat became an expert at moving people out of the Bay Area. So now, I mean, what's happened for so many people is they go, well, my kids aren't around here, or, there's other places I have relatives, or, it could be a lot of stuff, grandkids, maybe in different parts of the country. And so, yeah, a lot of times we'll do the math and we'll run the numbers and say, well, yeah, if you sell this house, you can pay off that mortgage. And guess what? Now you don't have a mortgage anymore. You can go buy a new place for cash in lots of other places in the country. And yes, you're going to pay some taxes. So one of the things that we typically do is we do some specialty tax planning right before the client goes in and sells that house. But yeah, for a lot of our clients, it's been really wonderful. I've got one client who just sold her place, and she's Irish, and so she was going to split time between her daughter in Ireland, and then also she's got one in Seattle. And luckily, she just sold it for so much more than she even planned on that she's going to be able to easily buy a place up in Seattle that, kind of a house where they can add a little, mother-in-law unit or mother unit, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then she's also going to buy a place in Ireland just with the proceeds. And without having to have that mortgage anymore, she'll have plenty of other monies, that really frees up that other money, right, just to be able to live on. Had another client that they had a business out here and a chiropractic office, and they were closing that down. They were able to finally, luckily, sell it because they had some troubles for a while. They're trying to find a good buyer. And, they sold their place here. They'd been building a custom house out in Florida. And all the proceeds from that, paid off that place. Now they've got, with some of the extra money, they don't even think they're going to need to touch any of their retirement assets for probably 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Which, is a great way to then let that money build and grow. And we can do some advanced tax planning and some Roth conversions and all sorts of stuff. So, there are ways to think about things and change stuff. And, and the nice thing with Zoom and all that, these people can still be my clients anywhere really where they end up. So, so I definitely have a lot more clients, a lot more states, that's for sure. So, and a couple other countries even. So, yeah, I mean, so that's one of the things that maybe not something you're thinking of. Maybe you said you wanted to stay around here because, of course, we have the great weather. But sometimes maybe it's a grandkid, maybe it's your children, maybe it's just you met somebody else or whatever. But a lot of times you end up moving, and if you can do it right, if you plan it right, there's a lot of ways that you can get this done, and definitely save all those receipts for when you fix up the house, because you might need that for your tax records. But again, if you want to get any of our information here, we've got a lot of great downloads, like will your money last as long as you do? Social Security timing decisions, all sorts of things, like also a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even a time to set up a time to talk with me. That's all at the digital toolbox. So, again, you've been listening to Wealth Creator Radio. This is Eric Heckman, and I'll be back next week. Again, if you want to text to get that toolbox, just text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Thanks for listening.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.